There are many pieces of the puzzle to build thriving, inclusive teams and organizations. Lots of them. I think there's one that's the most important. I'm biased. This is my bias. I think almost everything in life comes down to what I'm about to say, which is a key one is communication. Really, everything is communication. So some of the other pieces of the puzzle are, what are your policies? What are your hiring practices? What are your recruitment practices? What kind of interview questions do you ask? Those are all structures and systems that you put in place, but they communicate something too. So I was recently coaching a school principal who was an interim for the year, so she had to reapply for her job and go through the interview process again. And she is in a title school, which means it's a high poverty school. And she was going through the interview process, and they asked her a question about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And she said, I think I fumbled it, Sage. Like I was so caught up in my head about what should I say and what do they want to hear. And the irony is I know her, and she has lots of identities that make her in many ways much more diverse than some of her colleagues and peers in the district where she works, but she got nervous. And I said, you're gonna have another interview, which was good. This ends well, she has the job. But I said, you're gonna have another interview, and I happen to know this school district because they've hired me to work with a bunch of their principals, and I think they're asking that question because they're vetting. It's a filter for them. They are trying to make strides in their diversity, equity, and inclusion work, and they have a long way to go. And they're asking their candidates to speak to it because they want candidates who can. And she was like, oh my gosh. I said, yeah, the question is an indication too, right? It's all communication. So it's the interpersonal that we're building. We're going to talk about that. But it's also, those of you in positions of leadership, it's what are the systems communicating, right? So I'm going to give you an actual framework. Somebody said in the last session, which I thought was really great, that the framework we're about to go over can actually really be used kind of as a lens. I use the term equity lens a lot, and overlaid with your specific company's values and core values, et cetera, because it's really a way of seeing things and approaching things, okay? So this is the ABCDE framework. ABCDE. Should know my alphabet in order, but I still have to question myself. We're going to practice this together in a bit, but I want to go over what it really looks like. So approaching with respect. The foundation is always about approaching with respect. So just consider for yourself a time when you felt respected or a time when you felt disrespected, right? You know what that feels like inside of you. Think about how you approach conversations with others. Being curious. I'm banging on this drum a lot today because I think it's sort of the foundation for doing any kind of work that's new and innovative and sensitive, Ask questions instead of making assumptions. I was also recently with a leadership team of IT professionals, and they were all white, and we were having a conversation about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it was very intense, and they were very brave, and one of them said, just because I'm look like all of you doesn't mean that my path was necessarily the same. I came from real poverty. I was the first in my family. I worked my butt off. She didn't feel that she'd been given things. Don't assume that it was whatever you think it was, right? And it was such an interesting place for me to stand as the facilitator of this discussion and this dialogue, because on the one hand, I really want to hear her story. I want to honor that. That's your experience. You get frustrated that people don't see you for what your journey has been. And on the other hand, I also have to take it into there's diversity within diversity within diversity. And while you had some disadvantages, you also had some advantages, right? And so it's a tension point. But being curious and listening allowed me to hold both of those, where she could feel really heard, like, I get it. This was your journey. And you also can get that if I had, put you in a fancy suit and sent you into a company interview, certain assumptions would have been made about whether or not you were meant to be there. Regardless of your family's background, they wouldn't have known, right? So it was being curious is really powerful if we can keep that sort of mindset, right? Communication for connection. This is me cheating. This is a framework within a framework. We couldn't do all the things today because it's a short period of time. I am going to teach you this briefly, but hold tight for a minute. I'll come back to it. This is about how we really communicate to build and forge connections with people. Dialogue, encouraging discussion. Dialogue really is back and forth, right? We can't say that we believe that all voices should be heard or that we want to, innovate and bring more interesting perspectives to the table if we're not actually going to have dialogue. And I was recently called out on that in a subtle way myself. And so I was with a group, again, in this case of school principals, and they had not met me yet. And they had done what a lot of people do, which is Google me, and see who is this person that is coming in and taking me out of my school building and taking my time, and is it going to be worth it, right? We always get assessed. And one thing that they had found was that I have this podcast called Race, Culture, and Beyond. And one of the titles of a specific episode, it's not in the meta of the podcast, but one of the specific episodes, a guest we had on said white supremacy and something to this nature, right? Those words. And so this gentleman in a room full of his peers raises his hand. He's like, "So you have this podcast and you say this," and and I was like, "Oh, okay." This my instinct first is, "Uh-oh, where's this going? I don't, And then I breathed, and I said, "Okay, this is what dialogue is, right? Yeah, I do have that podcast, and I have some really interesting guests on the show. We have some really interesting conversations. I would totally love to hear what you think about it." And not defensive, just, am I really going to, because I had already Googled this person, and I knew I had a little background too, so, because I had been, anyways, right? So, but it was great. And then I continued to work with him as an executive coach, and he listened to the show, and I thought, oh my gosh, that is the point. Right? That's part of what I'm asking all of us to be in, is the discomfort of the dialogue if we're going to get any better at how we build these communities and these spaces where people want to come and work, perform at their very best, and stay. And then the last one is educate yourself. We can never know enough. We just can't. This is forever learning.